and today I'm going to take you through something a little bit different. I'm going to show you how I make these Action Man stands here. I've tried to get them down as cheap as possible, and basically this is the basic. If you didn't do anything else, then you could make these for about 65 pence. If you wanted them sprayed black, then they're going to cost you 76 pence roughly from the materials that I bought at today's price. It's dead simple. The only things you'll really need besides some basics tools is some super glue, which is really cheap super glue. This is the main thing. This is galvanized garden wire. You get about 5 meters for about £5. I've gone for the 2mm width. And then also you need some wood. Now I went for some pine just because it was easier to cut, but you could supplement this with like pallet wood if you wanted, and that'd probably make it even cheaper. Or if you wanted round stands, then what you could buy was a fence post, a circular fence post, and then rather than cutting lengths, you'd be cutting the thickness of the stands each time. But this is what I went for anyway. I got 2.4 meters of this, and it cost me about £11. So let's begin. I decided to go for a 9cm by 9cm base. I just felt that was about the right size. It's similar to the original G.I. Joes, except they obviously were circular, but I just find the diameters of that make its shoulders stick out a little bit further at the top than the base, but I still find that there's plenty of room there, and you can get quite a lot of them stacked up against each other nicely. So that is why I chose 9 by 9. Obviously it also helps that the wood is 9cm in width, so that just saves me doing extra cutting. Obviously if it was a little bit thicker, I might just square it off to match whatever the base of the wood that I'm cutting is. So just nice and simple. Once I've cut the first one off, I'll just line the second one up on the piece of wood that I've got, and I'll just draw a straight line across, and that's my measurement for that next stand. So obviously then I'm just going to give it a simple cut right across that line. So yeah, once it's cut, I would probably just go round with file, just file the edges down. Another thing you could do is you could round the corners if you wanted, and you could maybe file down the side here. The only reason I'm not going to do that is because I just want all my stands to be a little bit more consistent, so I'm just going to go for the square look really. So then the next part is marking up some holes. So what I've decided to do with mine is I've gone 3cm from the top, and then I've also gone 3cm in from either side, just to make it consistent and easy. So then the next thing we're going to do is drill these 2 holes that we've marked there. Obviously ensure that the drill bit that you are using is the same thickness as your galvanized wire, because if it's too big it just won't stay in place. But obviously check, because this galvanized wire comes in different thicknesses, so if you've bought a 2 or a 2.5 or even a 3, just make sure that your drill bit matches. And then same on the other one. Take that out, and there we go. I've got my 2 holes that should be in the correct place. So what we'll then do is set that to the side, because now we're going to work on bending the wire. So the measurements for the wire, the way I worked it out is if you hold the tape measure up to Action Man's crotch and then down to his foot, it's about 15cm. And then it obviously depends on the thickness of your wood. So my wood is about 1cm thick, and then also you need 2cm to do this hook bend on the end. So all in all, that brings me out to 18cm. So what I actually did is made this just because it's quick and easy to make multiple at the same time. So the measurement from that top screw all the way down to the base is actually 18cm for me, just so that I don't have to keep measuring it every single time. So I will quickly cut a piece of that wire now. So the reason I chose this galvanized gardening wire is because it's really easy just to bend with your hands, but once it's bent into position, it's definitely sturdy enough to hold your Action Man up. I was looking at using coat hanger wire, but that increased the price, and also I found that it was a lot more tougher to manipulate with just your hands, so you'd have to use tools. And sometimes when you're putting these in, they need a little bit of jigging about, just so that you can get them into position, into a solid position. So I just find that it's better to have this easier to bend wire, and so that is why I chose the galvanized wire. So I will quickly pull out a strip just like this, and then I'm going to try and do this as best as I can on camera, but it is a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to hook it on there. Obviously, if there's a few kinks and stuff in the wire, it's not too much of an issue. Your Action Man's actually going to hide most of this with his leg, so you're not going to see the kinks anyway, so that's fine. So that's the basics. I've wrapped it round, so I know roughly that's the right length. Then I'm just going to snip it off this end. I'll neaten it up in a second. So now that I've got that there, what I'm actually going to do is just take it off, try and straighten this wire as much as I can, just to ensure that my measurements are as close as they are. And then now that I've got that initial bend in it as well, I'll actually bend that together a little bit tighter. As you can see there, just squishing it together with my fingers works perfectly fine. Just straighten it up a little bit more. And then I will hook it over there. And because I know that this measurement is 18 centimeters, I know that I can snip it right there, and that will be the right length. There we go. So that's the starting of my wire. So then the next thing, the reason I've got this contraption on the end here is to help me bend the right hook shape that's just here. Obviously you can do that with pliers, but I just thought I'd try this out and see if it made it any quicker. It probably hasn't for me really, but I've got it there now, so I might as well use it. So all I do is I make sure there's about 1 centimetre at the end over the curve, and then I'll just push down on either side like this. There we go. And what that's done is that's given me my little hook like that I need on the end. Okay, and then we need to do one more bend in here. So what I'm going to do is put a further bend in this position here. I've decided to go for 16 because if you remember correctly, the Action Man's inside leg was 15 centimeters plus the thickness of the wood. So I'm just going to give it a go. We bend it down just like that. Now I know where the bend is, so I could just do the rest with my finger. The good thing about that is obviously if I've measured this a little bit too long or a little bit too short, I can then bend it back out and re-bend it a little bit further up if that's not quite the right length. Okay, the final step is putting it together. So then I will get my super glue. Any super glue will do. The cheapest, it works just as good as the most expensive for this. Just put a few dots where the holes are and then grab your stand. Obviously make sure that your hook is facing forward because that's the side that Action Man's going to be standing on. And then we just feed it into the holes. Just like that. Now obviously it's not very straight and everything at the moment, it's a little bit wonky, but we can straighten that up in a minute. Just ensure that it is in the holes properly and not just resting on the side, because otherwise that might be a little bit more work. So I'll give that a minute to dry. Now that that's dried, all I'll do is I'll pick it up and give it a little bit of an adjust just to neaten it up a little bit more. Okay, just like that. There we go, that looks straight enough to me. And then what I will do is I will borrow this Duke so that you can see, and basically the hook goes right under his crotch, just like that. So it does balance on it, and leaning forwards, as you can see here, you can get quite a big angle on him leaning forwards. So they shouldn't be doing any shelf diving. Obviously, if that's not quite long enough, then you can adjust it by bending it there, or if you need this hook bending around a little bit more to grip them some more. But that's it. That is the basics of these stands. So if I bring you down to the right level, that's the stand that in its basics. Like I say, you can make with the materials, the prices that I paid at today's rate, that works out at 65 pence. And from buying my 2.4 meters worth, I could make 26 with these and still have plenty of wire left spare. Obviously plenty of glue. So it's just the timber for the base. Like I say, you could use multiple things. If you have pallet wood, obviously it's going to take a little bit more cutting. You might have to refine it a little bit more to neaten it up. But yeah, you can just go along and fire these out so that you've got plenty of them. Next thing that I would go on to is the customizing. So obviously these look a little bit plain. They're not going to look too great on your shelf just like that. But just giving them a quick simple spray in black obviously makes a big difference to how they look and makes them look a lot more uniformed. So with this one, I did something a little bit different. Like I say, if you buy a £3 pot of black spray paint, this bumps your total price up to about 76 pence. So that's still really, really good. What I've actually done with this one is I bought a textured spray paint. Excuse me, that was a little bit dusty. So what this does is actually gives it a little bit more of a texture, just so that it doesn't look so plain. It also hides any of the crimes if you've not sanded it down or done any proper cutting on it. And that's really, really simple and cheap. Then for another option that we've got is I actually went to a carpet shop and I asked for a sample of this fake lawn, fake turf. And I basically just cut out a square and stuck it over so that it folds around the corners, just to add a little bit texture. Obviously that was free for that, so that didn't cost me anything, but I did only get a small square. If you wanted to make it longer and do plenty in this, then obviously the cost is going to go up. The customizing is how much money you want to spend on it and how much time you want to put into it. So yeah, that was another one that I did. As you can see there, the stand's a little bit bent and not really very straight, but then as soon as I put the Action Man on it himself, you can't even see the stand anyway, really. So it's perfectly fine how it is. And again, yeah, they all hold really, really well, so they're not going to fall off. So then the final customized one that I've got to show you here is this one. I thought about this doing it in a few ways. So I was either going to use polyfiller and sculpt it and mold it round, but I just thought that the polyfiller, because I wanted molding boots of the feet in the base, but then I thought the polyfiller is just going to get stuck in the bottom of my Action Man's boots and I didn't really want that. And then I thought, well, maybe I could just use sand and PVA glue and stick that down. But then I just didn't think that was really a viable option. So what I actually managed to find was this stuff called kinetic sand. I got it for really cheap. It was like £1 and it did this one stand here. So what I did is I molded the kinetic sand around it and then I just dropped super glue over it as I went. The good thing about kinetic sand is it actually holds its shape and you don't have to wet it, it just holds its shape. So I could actually put the Action Man's boots into the base and then it held the position of the boots, so that I could then go around and put a few blobs of super glue in there and try and get it to focus. There we go, without the stand being in the way. And that just held the shape of it really, really well. And then I went over and gave it a black wash, just with some watered down black paint. And I think it's really solid, this. It's actually very, very heavy. So he's definitely not going anywhere, this Duke. And yeah, you just pop him on and then his feet go into place. And that is how he looks. Like that. Another option that you have is one that I've done here. So I didn't actually go along and cut all that piece of wood up. I just had it as one long piece that I put on my shelf, obviously measured out holes so that the Action Men all had enough room to go shoulder to shoulder. What I actually did with this one is inset some a centimetre further back or further forward, just so that you could get a full length of them. And as you can see there, it's a nice display on the shelf. They're not going anywhere. I can actually pick that whole shelf up itself, the stand, and none of them fall over, so that's a miracle. So yeah, that's just some really easy, quick, basic stands. Like I say, you can churn them out really, really fast. It saves you from having all your Action Men falling over all the time. Obviously, you can build some really nice displays with it if you wanted to. I'd be really interested in seeing people, if they decided to build these, and how they customize them themselves. And if you do that, I'd love to see pictures on Instagram. If you could tag me in them for Rawpain reviews, because I'd just love to see everyone else's work and what they managed to do with these stands. So thanks for watching. I hope you found that really helpful, and if you like these videos, just like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for more Rawpain reviews.